Hello, my name is Miss Amber and I'm here with your English 12A live lesson. So today we're going to cover the sixth lesson of Unit 2, which is finishing up 12th Night Acts 4 and 5. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started by sharing my screen. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to get started here on slide 5. And I'm just gonna, as per usual, I'm gonna hit the major points here. Now, remember as a refresher, themes are fundamental and universal ideas that are explored or that someone looks into or theorizes about in a literary work. So basically what that means is experiences that are relatable to everyone, sort of big ideas like love, longing, things that have to do with life experiences, feeling out of place, needing to find a place to belong. These are what themes are. They have to be big ideas that most humans can relate to. That's why it's called a universal idea. The universe has everything in it. So a universal idea has to be something that everyone can understand. So they go over some of the major ones from 12th Night, which are melancholy, that's a fancy word for deep sadness. We have appearance versus reality, that's how things are versus how they seem to other people. And madness, so that's just straight up being crazy or being driven crazy by things that are happening to you. So those are some of the themes that pop up in 12th Night. So there are two key themes in the play though, that are more important than those other three. And that will be love and gender confusion. Now, as I'm sure you remember from reading the first 3 acts from the last lesson, you'll know that there are characters who are like female dressing up as male and vice versa in this play. So gender confusion, people not knowing who people actually are, people keeping their identities hidden, falling in love with people who aren't who they say they are. Those things are a big part of 12th Night. Now, there's gender confusion specifically coming from Viola, one of the characters in the play, cross-dressing, and her doing that sets in motion basically all of the hijinks and events that happen in the play. There are some funny scenes that are a result of what's happening, but there's also some complications. It kind of messes things up for people. Including creating a love triangle. So the love triangle that ends up forming because of Viola's cross-dressing gets the characters into situations that lets the reader or the person watching the play find out some very important things about the characters' personalities. And that's basically how we get to know them in the story, through the drama of people dressing up and pretending to be people they aren't. Okay, now this slide has the subtitle Love, and that's because that is the other major theme. Remember they said love and gender confusion. So although the love triangle that involves the characters Orsino, Olivia, and Viola, who also dresses up as Cesario, pretending to be a man, entertains people who read the books like in this day and age, it was also entertaining to people back then. And that's part of what makes this a universal theme. The fact that audiences back in Shakespeare's day could relate to this and find it awkward and funny the same way that we do today. And this slide just asks you to think about romantic comedy movies that you've seen. And they list out elements that are shared both by this play and the movies, like people who meet and develop feelings for each other, but are separated by whatever's going on. There's slapstick comedy for effect in this play. There's impossible situations that make the audience uncomfortable in terms of how the characters interact. You're not sure if they're actually going to get together. But because this is a comedy and a love story, the 2 main characters do actually overcome everything and get together at the end. In Shakespeare's time, romantic comedies usually ended in the marriage of the main characters. And even though not everyone gets married in like movies these days, It's basically still like a happy ending where everyone gets the thing that they wanted at the beginning that seemed impossible. So this play isn't actually that different from like your average rom-com that comes out, like during the holidays. All right, let's move on to slide number 7. Going into the love details a little bit more, Twelfth Night explores the pain of unrequited love. So all of the people who are in the love triangle in this play are attracted to someone who doesn't return those feelings. Orsino has feelings for Olivia, who doesn't have feelings for him. Olivia has feelings for Cesario, who doesn't have feelings for her because Cesario is secretly Viola cross-dressing, and Viola has feelings for Orsino. So what makes this, I guess, a deeper work is that all of these characters express different ideas about the pain of unrequited love. So you get to see it from different perspectives. Orsino is a character, for example, who's more in love with the idea of love than the actual person. So he describes it as being fed by an insatiable appetite, right? But Olivia compares being in love to being afflicted by the plague or an illness of some kind. So basically, what she ends up saying to you through the play is that being in love is pain when the other person doesn't return your feelings, and that she would rather not be in love with this person, but she is, so she has to act on it. So those are two contrasting ideas. And it's the same as if you ask someone what love is in today's day and age, each person will have a different answer. Sometimes you'll have a couple answers that are similar, but for the most part, everyone has their own take on it. Other important things to note in Shakespeare's plays is that love makes these characters behave foolishly. Like if you've ever, heard of someone, being played when they're in love or being gullible, basically that's what these characters do. They're willing to do anything under the sun, even if it's super dumb, to try to make their dreams come true, to end up with the people that they want. And sometimes they just sort of like fall into that very cartoonish idea of love when they visualize it in their head. So there's a quote here on this slide that recounts Orsino saying he only wants to lie in a bed of flowers and spend all his time listening to music and thinking about Olivia. That's what he wants to do. He just wants to enjoy the feeling of being in love with her. And Malovio, who is one of Orsino's friends, thinks that his love for Olivia will be reciprocated, even though he has a lower status that makes it impossible for them to be together. And because of that, because he thinks that there's a chance that Olivia might return his feelings, other people trick him into dressing and acting in like weird ways to try to get her attention. Okay. Now, this video is pretty long. We don't cover videos when we do these reviews. It's important for you guys to take the time to pause and look at these videos yourself. But I will go over a couple of the main points from this video that are important for you to take away, so that you at least have an idea of what you're listening out for once you start the video. So pretty much this video goes over what the culture was like during the time that Twelfth Night came out and how that affects what the play meant and what Shakespeare was trying to do with it. So at the time that this was written and performed, women couldn't even act in plays. It was against the rules, against societal norms for women to act in plays. There was a literal law saying that women couldn't, there was law dictating what people could wear at the time. So if you were a woman, you couldn't dress in anything that was considered masculine at the time. And I don't mean that in the same way that like men wear pants and women can wear pants now. Like there are very specific articles of clothing that were assigned to men and women. including, like floofier, fancier things. But if you were a woman, you could not wear male attire. And if you were a male, you were not allowed to wear women's attire. It was literally the law at that time. Like you could be arrested and fined for doing that. So a lot of these comedies that Shakespeare wrote do actually involve characters cross-dressing. So these plays are kind of like him using his plays, because he was like so popular, as a loophole to break those laws. He was pretty much commenting subtly on the fact that he thought those laws were unfair by writing plays that made it so that the men who acted in them would have to cross-dress. It's important for people to remember during the play, for example, that even though only a man can act in a play and basically like play a character, Viola, who is a woman in the play, was being played by a man. So it was important for the audience to recognize that Viola was being played by a man. So this female character was being played by a man. And in the play, Viola, the female character, dressed up as a man. So you have a man playing a woman who pretends to be a man in this play. And the entire point of this was to show how silly it is to have these rules to the point where this was the only way that he could write the play. So he incorporated that kind of irony, the irony of Viola not actually being a woman in the play, since people in plays had to be played by men, dressing up as a man. So that created an irony that the viewers were all aware of. And there's also the irony of all of these men being called male names when they were dressed up as men, even though they were playing a female character. So for example, there are certain parts of the play where it's revealed that Cesario and Viola are the same person. But everyone who's used to calling Viola Cesario continues to call her Cesario because that's what they know her as. So there's sort of like a picture in picture, frame in frame layers here, where the man who's playing Viola, the audience has to remember that Viola is a female who is dressed like a man and being called by a man's name, even though Viola is the name of the character. That's so silly and ridiculous. The point was kind of just to punch back at those laws. And those laws did have names. It's covered in the video. They're called sumptuary and morality laws. So these were the types of laws that covered how people could act in public, where people could build theaters, because theaters were still considered a little controversial at the time, even though they were popular. And the laws about how people could dress were a part of these laws. So the overall point of the video is that these plays were Shakespeare's way of making everything in the play so complicated that it confused what parts of the laws applied at what point, and it got people to laugh at the laws through laughing at the actors that had to go through all these hijinks to be in the play and portray the play. All of this could be solved if they just actually let women dress in men's clothing, and if they let women actually play characters in plays, but they wouldn't do that. So he made these comedies on purpose to sort of make fun of the law and stretch it to its limit, pretty much. That is basically what the point of this video is. I still recommend that you watch it because they do actually give you some other points, but I just wanted to give you the groundwork, because once we start going over any of the other information about these parts of the parts of the play that are coming up, this context is important. It's important that while they're describing the things that happen in this play, that you imagine a man dressed as a woman to play a woman who dresses as a man to pretend to be a man in this play, because it helps you understand why people found these sort of hijinks so funny. It wasn't just the play itself, although there is humor in the play itself. It was the real life circumstances of how the play had to be performed that also made it funny. Okay, Let's see. Most of these are questions. Oh, and then we have the focus on language here. So slide 16, focus on language. There were a lot of questions on the sumptuary laws and that kind of stuff. And that's why it's important for you guys to actually watch that video. So if you need to take a moment to hit pause, go to that video and watch, fill out those questions, and then come back here, please do so. All right, we are on slide 16 now. This is focus on language, and it just gives you more information about the wordplay that's in the 12th Night. Shakespeare used wordplay in all of his works, so you really can't look at any of his plays without talking about puns and different types of jokes. So they do talk about puns here, and I'm going to give you the definition of a pun, which is plays on multiple meanings of words. So when you're basically think a joke based on a double entendre. It's like when you're listening to music and you hear people using one word to mean something else, they're sort of poking fun at the fact that words that have different meanings are spelled the same. That's exactly what a pun is. A pun is just specifically a joke about it. You can make reference to an entendre without it being a joke, but the pun is specifically the joke version of that. So they give you an example of a pun with an excerpt here, where Sir Toby says, "What is thy excellence in a galliard, knight?" And Sir Andrew says, "Faith, I can cut a caper." And Sir Toby says, "And I can cut the mutton toot." So basically what Sir Andrew is referring to here, he's referring to caper as a type of dance. So like a caper at that time was used to refer to a type of dance, and Gilliard is also basically the same thing, a type of dance. So when he says like, "I can cut a caper," he's saying that he can dance very well. So what is thy excellence? Like, what is your skill in a galliard? So Sir Andrew is saying like, yeah, I can cut a rug, basically is what he's saying. I can cut a rug, I can dance. That's a thing that I can do. But Sir Toby is making fun of the other meaning of the word caper, which is a pickled garnish for meat. So if you've ever heard of someone eating capers, that's like a thing. That is a thing that people can eat. It is actually a dish. So Sir Andrew made a joke based on Sir Toby's joke, and then Sir Toby made a joke based on Sir Andrew's joke to return it. So the joke is about dancing and the joke is about garnishes for meat. So Shakespeare used puns and other poetic devices to basically make things more entertaining. He used these on purpose to include jokes in his scripts. So the fact that people are delivering these lines, you can imagine them making these jokes on stage. There's supposed to be a whole pause for people to laugh when you make jokes like these. And the fact that the wordplay is here is the biggest hint that we have that Shakespearean scripts are meant to be plays that are read out loud. So he tried to basically create a poetic rhythm that would make these lines pleasing to hear. So like, listen to just the lines when I read them again. "What is thy excellence in a galliard, knight? Faith, I can cut a caper, and I can cut a mutton to it." So the way that he wrote these sentences, he didn't make them long. He allowed them to be short so they have some sort of rhythm. There's like a back and forth to it that if the sentence was too long, it would be too difficult for people to, like interpret. So he made like witty, fun punchlines, and he had a poetic form that specifically used types of words for the rhythm. Sometimes in a Shakespearean poems, you'll find lines where the word order is changed around, or he made up a phrase to describe something. So it sounds weird when you read it in your head. But the reason why he did this was to keep the rhythm and the poetic sound of these, because they're going to be read aloud and performed out loud. I think that's it. Yep, this was a quick one. just because the last couple acts are not that long. And they basically just wanted to make sure that you understood the themes of the play overall instead of just sort of like the plot, which is what they went over in the last lesson. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so if there were any issues understanding anything from this lesson, please let me know. Feel free to shoot an email to english@ats.edu.net. And you can also book a tutoring session with me or Kathy Vahovic, who are the two English tutors. But that's about it. That's about it for this one. This is a short one. Be prepared because the next one will definitely be longer. But other than that, this is Miss Amber signing off, and good luck with your English class.